because there's a weird echo that sometimes happens, and I don't know how to fix it yet, but we're going to adapt and overcome as we get settled in for our second Dynamic Friday of ever. Let's just call it forever. We've got folks dialed in on Free Conference Call HD as they've always been for years and years and years. We have folks watching from wherever you're watching. We appreciate you watching. And if you catch this stream at a later time or a later date or a later year, appreciate you taking the time to learn something with us today. If you heard in the background, yes, the dog is home, the dog is fine. And according to the $3,000 CAT scan, the dog doesn't have cancer. Hopefully, it's just an abscess that we can have medically dealt with on Monday. Good morning, back on script, and welcome again to our second Dynamic Friday together. I wanted to review with those of you watching and those of you listening how the new format works, just because it's still new to everybody. First, obviously, you can dial in and listen in to the first 30 minutes of the call like we always have done. I'm watching the call board on my iPad. You can hear me on Free Conference Call HD through my computer. It's a miracle of modern technology, but you're always welcome to listen in. And if all of a sudden you can't hear me, for the love of whatever you pray to, let me know so I can figure out what went wrong. Second, you have the opportunity on Fridays to watch. Thankfully, we're not both dressed the same today. Adam planned that accordingly. I'm just kidding. You have the opportunity to watch. The first 30 minutes are going to be the same. And then when I hit the hang up button on Free Conference Call HD, we're going to jump into long form training mode. It isn't going to be that long today. We're going to try to keep it as compact as possible as we go over, or as Adam goes over, his long form training topic for the week. And then from 10 a.m. to 10:15, if there's a specific issue that you'd like some training on, a question that you'd like answered, some sort of mentorship issue you want to answer live, you can put it in the chat box over there. You can join us on StreamYard, or you can send me a text message as well. Alrighty, so if you're dialed in or you're watching, however you're ingesting this content today, thank you. We appreciate your attendance. You're awesome for being here with us. Before we get to Adam's training, I wanted to open up today's conversation by talking about activity. I was talking to an agent recently about activity, and I wanted to make sure that I defined the term properly, because it sounds nice, but if we don't know what it really means, it's just empty words. And I have it broken down into 3 different categories today. I have it broken down into door knocking, or as I called it, the ground and pound way to over 6 figures. I have activity for appointment setting, a bougie way to spend a lot of money and make even more money. And I have it down into phone activity. Now, the phone isn't my specialty, but I connect with a lot of people and speak to a lot of people and have some good general parameters on what some good phone activity would look like. Then we're going to hear from Adam, and we'll continue forward from there. So first off, activity when it comes to door knocking. You're listening or you're watching 2 individuals who have probably door knocked more doors than many Amazon drivers over the course of their career. And when it comes to door knocking, here's what I always recommend that you do. First, you set your route. You have 25 or 30 leads. I don't care if they're fresh $40 direct mail or they're leads older than your kids. Just put them together and treat them as new. I personally like to organize them in sets of 25 or 30. It just keeps it manageable. Maybe you need 2 sets, maybe you need 3, but I like to keep it in that group of 25 to 30. And I always liked to set those leads in a route the night before the week starts, Sunday night, Saturday morning. I don't like to do that once the week has begun. And as you door knock through those leads, the expectation on activity would be that you're going to door knock 25 doors a day, which will lead you to about 4 presentations per day, which will lead you statistically to at least 1 application per day, regardless of skill set. Now, I understand 25 doors, if you're driving in rural America, might be a challenge. There's ways to get creative, but these are just general parameters. Now, if you're mixing in some appointments with your door knocking, let's say, for example, you turned over some aged leads to the appointment setters. You turned over some Facebook leads. You've got a small set of leads, not a full bore kind of effort. Your appointments in that scenario are merely a bonus. Maybe that isn't the best way to put it, but that's the way I saw it. If you're working a mix of door knocking and you're not working 25, 30, 35, 40 fresh leads just yet, the appointments are a bonus on top of your door knocking. The door knocking activity is what's going to drive you to the most of your production. Your appointments, when you get them, which you will, are merely an opportunity to provide additional structure to that day, to get you out the door, to tell you you got to go to work because someone's waiting to see you. The appointments are going to give you those low-hanging fruit opportunities that kind of motivate you because they were an easy sale. And the appointments in this scenario are going to help you find people you would have never found on your own. It's a team effort in that scenario. Second, when it comes to activity on appointment setting, well, here's the thing. When I say appointment setting in this sense, I'm talking you're spending bougie kinds of money, or you're showing high levels of production on the career program where we can give you high levels of lead flow. So let's just say, for example, you're used to door knocking 5 days a week. You're used to knocking 25 doors a day to give 4 presentations to write 1 application. If you've switched the focus to that bougie appointment setting approach, you may not need to work 5 days a week in the field. You may only need to work 3, but it's going to require 25, 30, 35, maybe upwards of 40 leads a week to make this kind of approach work. When you're making this kind of approach, you're likely going to be getting 11, 12, upwards of 15 appointments a week with that kind of lead volume. This kind of lead activity, this kind of bougie appointment setting requires a lot of money. Or on the career program where we're covering the lead cost for you, requires you demonstrating you can sell consistently 5, 6, maybe 7K a week. Now, of course, this kind of activity where you're spending a lot to see more people in less time still requires you to have a plan B. You still have to be willing to bang doors just like you were in the other approach. I had a situation a few months ago. I'm in a senior building. I have appointments in the senior building, but I also have other leads in this building. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go to the appointments, but I'm also going to knock the doors like it's 2016 because I'm already in the building. Just because you're running appointments doesn't mean you're too cool to knock doors. Your plan B approach also should consist of people that have fallen off the books, people that are also in the neighborhood, people that will buy more insurance from you if you just simply show up, people that you may have follow-up opportunities for additional products. This approach, like I said, as we talk about activity this morning, will provide you the opportunity to go from 100 to 200K a year to upwards of 400,000. And more importantly, it's not just me telling you this right now. It's you literally watching Adam replicate that in real time, which is proof of concept in ways you should really be appreciative in seeing. And last, phone appointments. If you're working over the phone, here's the funny thing. In 2020, when COVID hit, many people switched to working over the phone, and that was their decision. And in a lot of cases, people switched to working over the phone because they thought it was going to be easier. Like they just thought they would sit there in their underwear, put their feet up, and people would call to buy insurance from them. It's not how it works. We have plenty of proof to show that's not how this works. If you're selling over the phone, you have to be willing to be getting hundreds of leads that you're dialing thousands of times a day, or spend the money on multi-state Facebook orders where you're getting leads all the time, or be willing to spend the money and take live transfers or Medicare transfers that will put you on the phone with people that want to talk to you about what you're selling. Again, selling over the phone isn't any easier, and it also requires a better understanding of technology. Do you know how to use a CRM? Do you know how to work through Go High Level? Do you know what Kixi is? Can you multitask on multiple devices at the same time? And most important, can you still lock yourself away and work 8 hours a day on just selling over the phone? Not your laundry, not walking your dog, not cooking dinner, like 8 hours on the phone, hell or high water. That's the kind of phone activity necessary to make telesales just as profitable as in-person sales. So there's activity for you. There's door knocking, ground and pound, blue collar your way to 100K or more. Appointment sending, spend a lot of money, make even more money in less time in the field. Phone activity, it isn't any easier, but we have plenty of ways, plenty of resources, and plenty of proof of concept it can work just as well. Now, Adam, I don't know if we're going to get any echo as I switch over to letting you take over the call today, but if we do, I'm going to run off screen. I'm going to jump back on when I figure it out. But let's do it. The rest of the call is yours, and I'm excited to hear in the next 10 or 20 minutes your thoughts on this week in the field.
Hey, good morning. Thanks, Chris. Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I'll tell you, it was a pretty simple week, in my opinion. I don't even know how long this will take to kind of run through a few things. So, but we can kind of go back and forth with some things as well. Uh, Talking about appointments, I've always been one that has been so much about door knocking forever. I never called and set up appointments. All I ever did was just put a route together. I'd always take the leads. I just always had a fear of rejection over the phone. I just was never comfortable over the phone. I just much preferred, for me, it's always felt a lot easier to get in the door when I am just already there. So I was never really a whole lot about appointment setting. I remember one carrier convention I was on probably 10 years ago, maybe even longer than that. I remember, one thing about these carrier conventions, you're always surrounded around successful people that, heck, they wouldn't be on the trip unless they were writing a lot of business. And I just remember talking to one guy. I think he was like down in Louisiana, maybe, and we were just kind of hanging around on the beach talking. And he says, uh, he says, how do you generate your business? I said, all I do is door knock. And he said, well, why do you just door knock? Why don't you call and set up appointments? And I'm like, I don't know. I've always been more comfortable with just door knocking the leads. And he's like, well, if they write their phone number down on the lead card, I mean, heck, give them a call. I mean, what do you have to lose? He even said, like, if they're not gonna give you the time of day over the phone, well, then door knock it. And I still just never really did it. Honestly, I've always been more comfortable door knocking until I'd say maybe a little over a year ago was when I finally decided to just get back out in the field. When I left my prior company, I started doing some telesales stuff, and it didn't work out the way that I would have liked. Nothing against telesales. I just like I said, I've never really been comfortable on the phone. I'm just so much better face to face, talking, sitting down on the couch, talking to people. It's just kind of more my style. So anyways, about a year ago, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna get out of doing that. A little over a year ago, I'd say like maybe like last June, and I told Chris, yeah, I need the steady flow of leads, and I'm gonna get set up the same way you are with your appointment setters. He gave me at the time it was a different appointment setter. He gave me the information. I got it all set up, and then same thing. They were just filling up my schedule with appointments, and I definitely do see the value in that, uh, because if anything, like I've always said, it gives me a little bit more structure. If they can set me up that 9 a.m. appointment, that means that I'm getting out of the house, I'm ready to go. And now it even helps. I got my 4-year-old boy who's in preschool, and he wants me to take him to school every morning. He's got to be there by like 8:25, 8:30. So makes it even easier where I'm ready for work, and then I'm heading to take him to school and then heading out to my first appointment. So I really like having that 9 a.m. appointment to be able to just get up and get out, and regardless of whether that appointment is home or not, it at least got me up and out in the field. Where in the past, if I didn't have that 9 a.m. appointment set, there would be a chance that I'd just be lollygagging a little bit. If I'm just going out and door knocking leads, I might not even leave my house until 9:30, maybe even 10 o'clock sometimes. So right there, I mean, it just gives me the chance to be out in the field sooner, to get in front of more people. But this week, all of the business I wrote, actually, I did some door knocking, but all of the business that I wrote were off of appointments. Two of the appointments generated business off of from the appointment setter setting the appointment. And then one of them was actually a door knock of mine that I door knocked like last week in the evening. It was a husband and wife, and the wife was like, well, my husband's not here. And I'm like, well, we got to get together when he is. What's a good time? And she said, well, he works a lot. The only time that we can really get together is on Saturdays. And then she ended up texting me on Saturday that he was going to be off work this whole week. So we were able to get together this week when she got off of work. I think like Wednesday at 5:00 or whatever. So I was able to set the one appointment, and then the other 2 sales I made were off of appointments generated through our appointment setting team, which, like I said, boy, without having that luxury, well, heck, this week, I don't know what I would have done. Yeah, I would have been door knocking the time that I would have had those appointments, but because I had those appointments set, it put me in front of the people to write some business. So yeah, the first sale I made was Tuesday. And I had, I don't know, I might have had a few appointments that were no shows earlier in the day. A bunch of door knocks, just didn't really get anywhere. This one was later in the day. It's kind of weird. I don't know how that is. I don't know if I just really, really push hard towards the end of the day because I hadn't done anything yet. And it's like time is running out. Maybe I just need to start feeling like that at 9 a.m. Maybe I'm just a little bit more energized, like later in the day, to try to get that business done. Cause I just hate coming home without having anything. Like I like coming home knowing that I don't feel like my day was successful or I accomplished anything if I didn't write any business. So Tuesday I ended up writing the one, and this was one, the lady, she had 2 policies already, but they were both term policies. So right there, to me, that's an easy sale. She's got 2 policies that are at some point going to expire. So I didn't do anything with her term policies. I mean, they were larger face amounts. The reason for those was because she had a mortgage. She had kids that were older, but they were still living with her. And she needed more coverage to cover the balance of the mortgage, and just to make sure that if something were to happen to her, that her kids aren't going to lose the house and all of that stuff. So I wasn't going to talk her out of that, but my whole selling point is, well, those are going to expire. You need a forever plan. You need a plan that you know is always going to be there no matter what. And because we know someday you're going to die and there's still going to be expenses there, regardless of when you pass. If you pass away and your term policy runs out, your house is already paid off and everything, that's great, but you're still going to have expense when it comes to the funeral. And that's where your family is going to need the coverage. And so, yeah, that one I wrote, I think it was like maybe a $20,000 policy, 15 or 20,000. It was 720 AP, I think. Tried putting it through with one carrier, came back graded, ended up writing it with AmAm. And I think I'm still waiting on that one to see if I get the final approval. I think I should. I kind of went through everything with her. I didn't see really any reason why she shouldn't qualify. I think there was just maybe like a multi-purpose med that they had some questions about or something. So I'm pretty confident. The great thing the one thing that I really like about American Amicable is that they give you the ability to contest the decision. If you write something and it comes back, let's say it comes back graded or it comes back return a premium is what they call it. It's, most companies just call it modified. Well, for one thing, they show you the medications that pop up. They ask questions about some of the medications. And then from there, they ask if there's any information that you would like to provide. So that's giving you the ability to contest that decision. I'd say I probably win close to 75% of the cases that I contest with them because I have the information to back it up. It's not like I'm just making things up. I'm asking the client about certain things that popped up, and they're providing me the details. And then from there, I provide that information. And like I said, majority of the time, they look at it, and I've met with the people down at American Amicable. I like their attitude. I like their mindset when it comes to agents, and they look at agents out there as just their agent partners, that they understand the work that's involved. They don't feel like we're out there just trying to clean sheet business or anything like that. They know that we're just trying to make a living and do a good job and do what we can to help our clients. So, but anyways, so like I said, I'm still waiting on the decision on that one. I'll probably find out something today on it, but I feel pretty good about it. If it doesn't go through there, well, then I'll have option C. So I went from option A to option B to option, if I have to go to the third option, I will, but I don't think I'll have to. I feel pretty good about it. Wednesday, same thing, just a bunch of door knocking leads. I had that one appointment later in the day, and it was a 4:00 appointment. I actually took a little bit of time Wednesday and Thursday to get my AHIP done for Medicare. So while I was out in the field Wednesday, I had a little bit of time to kill. It was like, I don't know, 3:00. And I just decided, well, I got this 4:00 appointment. I got a little bit of time. I'm just going to go into this library here and do what I can. If I'm just sitting in my car, there's too many distractions. I'd rather just go sit at the library and sit and just be able to focus on getting that done. So I went through, I think I got maybe one or two of the tests done. And then I was in the middle of doing the test. I actually ended up getting to the appointment like 10 minutes late. And sometimes that happens to me. Most of the time, the clients don't even care. But like, if you were on the call yesterday, I talked a little bit about this guy that it was a husband and wife, and this guy just had, I don't know, he had issues with everything and just very opinionated, very trying to tell me how to do things. And like I said on the call yesterday, I was real close to just getting up and leaving. The guy was just kind of a jerk, was just really ticking me off. But I could tell that the wife was even frustrated with her husband. She knew that they needed additional coverage. I think they had some maybe through his old employment, but same thing. I think it was a policy that at some point could expire. She just wanted to make sure that they had something outside of anything that was through any sort of employment. And I've always told people that if you're paying for something yourself, at least that's always going to be there. Coverage through your job, that's great. Look at that as like just an added bonus. That's just gravy, because there's no guarantee that that's always going to be there. And if you're just depending on your coverage on your job, what if they cut your benefits? What if you lose your life insurance through your job? What if your health isn't great at that time? I've seen it happen. I've had people call me, I just lost my benefits on the job, I need insurance, and they're not in great health. And then they're stuck with like a modified policy. So, take something out while you're young, while you can get it. And at least that if you're paying for it, it's always going to be there. So anyways, I ended up kind of going through things. I wrote a couple policies. I wrote the husband and wife with American Amicable. And then I wrote her sons. They were younger. They were like in their like mid to late 20s, I think. I wrote them with Polish Falcon because they have the 20 pay product where it can be paid off in 20 years. I ran through that. I did the math on it. I showed it to them. Like, this is the monthly premium. You're paying about $300 a year for a paid up $15,000 policy in 20 years. And I showed like in 20 years, you paid in about $6,000 for a paid off $15,000 policy. Then the guy, the husband, just kind of cooled off a little bit. He's like, wow, that's really good. That's a good deal. So then he realized, like, I actually knew what I was doing, and I was actually there to help them. And so he cooled off a little bit. He was still just kind of back and forth. You better not be trying to pull one over on me. I'll find out where you live and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, whatever. I'm not worried about it. I'm doing the right thing. I've never had any issues. Never had any complaints against me. My clients know I have their best interests in hand. But anyways, I ended up writing about 5 apps in that house and totaled around $2,400 in premium. And then yesterday, same thing. It was just a lot of door knocking this week, and just I didn't have a whole lot of success getting in front of people. I ended up having what was it? I think it was a 6:00 appointment last night. So I didn't write anything all day again until last night. I had a 6:00 appointment, and I ended up writing the husband and wife, and it was the same situation. The guy was younger. He was 52. He was still working, and he had coverage on the job, and they were also like so prepared with their their final arrangements. I mean, this guy's 52 years old. They already had their plots purchased. They already like had other stuff arranged at the funeral home, and just, I mean, very rarely do I see something like that where someone that young has already thought ahead. And I think they had just maybe been through it a few times with other family members where they just hadn't prepared, and they just wanted to make sure that their family was set up properly, so their death would not be a financial burden on the family. So anyways, I ended up going through, I wrote them the platinum product with American Amicable that has the Everest involved. Because I knew they were all about just setting up all of their funeral arrangements, and there were still some things that they didn't have done that they still needed to pay for. And I explained to them, well, now you don't got to worry about doing the rest. With this plan, you can put the rest of it in order, and you'll be covered with the full benefit to cover all of those additional expenses right away. You make the first payment, you're fully covered with that death benefit. Not only that, these guys are going to step in when the time comes. Basically, your family's just going to have to make one phone call, and then they can show up at the funeral. These guys will handle the rest for them. Not only that, they can help you put a will together and everything else. And like I said, these people, they were just kind of all about just putting the plan together. So my whole thing is just always about figuring out a way for this to make sense to the person I'm talking to. When they have insurance already, let's make this different than what they already have. Let's figure out a way for this to make sense and a reason that they would like this too. I mean, I've even brought up, like, even if he had everything set up, I even told him, well, look, you pass away, your wife is still going to be living. She's going to need to be able to continue to move forward with her life, and she's going to need money. So, I mean, there's just different ways that you can make this make sense to people. But anyways, yeah, that was pretty much it for the week. I think I ended up maybe a little over 4,000 in 3 days. I like to write at least 5, but I was happy, at least got the 4. And like I said, majority of it was later in the day. Every single app I wrote this week was like after, I would say probably after 5 o'clock at night. Last night, it was a long appointment. They were good people. We just kind of hanging around talking for a while. I don't think I even got out of there till close to 8 o'clock at night. And this guy actually, we just kind of get to talking about things. And that's, I'm pretty friendly with my clients and that. We just kind of got to talking. I ended up, I needed a power washer for some stuff around my house. And he's like, I actually happen to have a brand new one just sitting out in my garage. I already had another one. I don't even know why I bought this one. You want to buy it off me? And I ended up buying like this $400 power washer off this guy, brand new, still in the box for $100. So that was a win too. So it was a win-win. So yeah, that's about all I got for you before we get going with the other training, Chris.
Yeah, there's so much that you said there that was so powerful, but seems so casual that I appreciate you taking the time to do it. Utilizing limited pay policies, it's a powerful sales tool for carriers like PFA, Baltimore Life, Transamerica. Utilizing efforts to make additional sales in situations most people would have just given up on. That there's money to be made if you're just willing to show up and stay late and see people after 4, 5, 6 o'clock. That you completed your agent training and you didn't die from it. Next set this carrier contract, and before you know it, 6-figure Medicare income in renewals. And the power of appointment setting, that it gives you structure for the day, motivation, a mindset that someone's going to be there, and it at least gets you moving. It gets a body in rest, in movement, and once you're moving, you're going to find your way into more business. So we're going to wrap up on Free Conference Call HD. We're going to switch over to StreamYard, YouTube, my Facebook channel, Adam's Facebook channel, all over the place. You can watch into the next 30 minutes of the training. But if you're going to hang up now, we appreciate you being here. Get out there and make some money today. Don't let today go to waste. Don't let today be a day that you sit back and watch people get ahead of you. Go out and make money. Switch over to StreamYard, and we'll see you live in about 2 minutes. All right. I think you can hear me here. Can you hear me over here, Adam?
All right. So, those of you that hopped on early for the beginning of the call. Thanks for hopping on.
All
I
right,
hope
let's get the audio straightened out here. But Adam's got his presentation loaded up, so we'll figure this out in a moment. 1, 2.
So yeah, I think Chris just maybe is working on his audio. I got mine set up here. Can you hear me, Chris? Can you hear me, Chris? I wish I could just fix Chris's audio settings. It'd be a lot easier. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and get started. Chris will be back with us in a minute. As I was saying, thanks again for hopping on for the beginning portion of the call. Like I said, we're really trying to do what we can to help agents out there, and I think just our experience out in the field, and I think that's what we like to share a lot of the different things that we go through during the week, because it can really relate to other people out there, and those are sort of things that I think can help everybody. Someone asked me about American Amicable, and he said, how much do you think your production and history with them weighs into getting cases approved? I don't think they really cherry pick, honestly. I think they just base it on it's a case-by-case basis. Sometimes it might feel that way. Sometimes, there's been cases where I've written that I still think I'll get approved, and they still keep it, return a premium, and they can see more than I can see. So, but no, I don't think that they're approving more for me than somebody else just because I write more business with them or something. I think that it's just a case by case, and they're looking at each case, and it's just a judgment call. You win some, you lose some. But anyways, this portion of the training, we're just going to be going through the presentation that I've used for years. I think that having some structure is important. I think going into a home and just winging it isn't the way to go. I think for one thing, when you have a presentation that you can work off of, it keeps you on point. If you're sitting with someone that just won't shut up and they always want to butt in, at least you're able to kind of get back to where you were at, where without a presentation, you could really fall off track and just end up kind of all over the place. And like I said, if you were on the call a few minutes ago, I talked about the one guy that just was just kind of a jerk and just really butting in and just asking me all these off the wall questions and everything. I mean, I think he was purposely trying to get to me to see how I would react. He was like an ex-Marine or something. I don't know. I think he was just trying to play mind games with me. But because I had a presentation, I'm kind of go back to, kind of get me right back to on point and, kind of show him that I'm actually the one here who's in charge. I'm the one who's going to kind of work you guys through this process, and it's not going to be the other way around. But without a presentation, who knows how that whole thing would have went. It could have went south pretty quick, where, like I said, I was real close to getting up and leaving, and I didn't. But without a presentation, maybe I would have. But I think it helps to have some structure. If you're building an agency, I think a presentation is super important. You want to have something that you can teach your agents. So when your agents are out selling, their process that they're going through. To me, I feel a whole lot more comfortable with the agents that I work with when I know they know what they're doing and they're doing everything that I've taught them. If they're doing things the way I've taught them, I know they're doing things the right way. And I know that I can feel pretty comfortable about the business that they're writing. So that's why I think it's important to have a presentation. I'm sure you'd agree, Chris.
Yeah, I had to log back out and log back in to get my audio straightened out. It was probably operator error, but that's okay. If you don't know what you're going to say, then guess what happens? The client says all kinds of random stuff and really never becomes your client. If you know what you're going to say, you can control the conversation from start to finish. No different than we have a structure to a call that takes place on a conference call line, on YouTube, on StreamYard, on a set period of time. You got to have structure to what you're doing, or nothing gets done.
So I'm going to go through the presentation that I've used. I'm going to try to breeze through it. I am going to try to hop on a train in about an hour because I'm going to the Cubs game today. You can probably see I got my stuff on. Cubs Yankees, pretty excited about it. So I am I'm going to try to breeze through this so I can get on the early train. I want to take my little boy and try to get in early so we can watch batting practice and try to get some autographs. So let's go ahead and get started here. So first thing, I always feel like it's important to follow the client's lead. If they walk to the kitchen table, sit down there. If they sit down on the couch, sit down on the couch. I like to sit wherever they feel comfortable. I'm not walking in and saying, can we go sit at the table? To me, I don't know. I just always like to do things different than other people out there. I mean, I remember the first insurance agency when I was 20 years old that I worked with. I actually worked for a Mutual of Omaha office for a few months. It was like a captive sort of deal when I first got licensed. And that was, right away, you ask if you should take your shoes off, talk about the pictures that you see on the wall, ask to sit at the table, all this stuff. And it's like, why does any of that matter? I think it's cheesy. I think it's the same thing that it's the same song and dance that people see all the time. That's the last guy that walked in did the same thing. I want to be different. I honestly, I just want to be me. And that's really how I am in the home. I don't change who I am. I go through the presentation. And now this is one thing I would agree with that I was probably taught way back when. If you're visiting with a husband and wife, be sure they're sitting next to each other or side by side. You don't want to be sitting like in between them. Sometimes it's difficult for them to be able to communicate. Like I could tell the other day that husband and wife that the guy was kind of a jerk. I mean, she just kept giving him the evil eye, but she was sitting right next to him. I mean, I could tell like it kind of got to the point he realized maybe I should just go in the other room now and shut up. So, but if she was, sitting on the other side, I don't know, maybe it would have been a little bit different. They want to be able to communicate amongst one another, but she wanted to kind of say stuff to him that she wouldn't have been able to if I was sitting in between them. Keep the client in their comfort zone. Like I said, if the TV is on and it's loud, I'll ask to turn the volume down, but I'm not going to ask to turn it off. I don't care. I mean, like I said, the client, they're used to conducting business sitting on the couch and with the TV on. So why take them out of their comfort zone? I don't ask to take my shoes off. I mean, don't ask to take your shoes off unless it's raining and they're all muddy or something, or maybe you got 6 inches of snow hanging off them. But outside of that, I mean, if you look good, if your shoes are clean, you just want to stay in charge. Bottom line. And I always say, save the rapport till the end. I don't really get into a whole lot of rapport building. I'm pretty straight and to the point when I get in the house. I'm not heeing and hawing around and asking about the pictures on the wall and stuff like that. Like I said, I just feel like that stuff's kind of cheesy. I kind of look at it as I build rapport by asking questions throughout the presentation that are related to the topic. That kind of puts them in the right mindset of them remembering why this is so important. So that's how I build rapport. So like I said, bottom line, get to the point. They know why you're there. They sent the thing back. You don't need to he and haw around for 25 minutes, ask them about their grandkids. Just get to the point. And then real quick, just a little commercial. Go over to adambersan.com to sign up for our future trainings too. That way I can add you to our mailing list. And that way you can hop straight onto our StreamYard, which honestly is probably one of the easiest ways to be able to watch us live on Fridays. So feel free, hop on there, fill out the form, and I'll add you to the list, and we'll be sure to notify you of future trainings and what the topics will be. So my presentation is really made up of questions. Like I said, I like to get the client involved by asking questions that are related to the topic. So I call them closing questions because that's what I'm doing. I'm closing them from the time I walk in until they're signing on the dotted line. So first closing question. So Mary, by sending this card back, have you experienced a funeral lately? And I'm just kind of waiting for her reaction. Maybe she doesn't even know why she sent the thing back, but that's what I want to right then and there. She understands that this is going to be about funerals. If I'm asking her if she'd experienced a funeral lately. So I'm hoping for an answer, a yes, that she had, because then I can ask more questions. So if she says, yes, she had experienced a funeral lately, the next thing I'm going to say, well, wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. The next question I'm going to ask, was there insurance involved? If so, was it enough? If there wasn't insurance involved, I'm so sorry to hear that. Did the family have to pitch in? Wow, I'm sure that made things difficult. Again, I'm kind of planting all those seeds to remind the client of why this is so important and why they need this. And if they say no, that they hadn't experienced a funeral, I usually just say, well, a lot of people we talk to, they had experienced a funeral and it was difficult, and the family sometimes ended up having to pitch in, and I might even bring up like the GoFundMe's and stuff, and that's just not really the route that people want to have to go. And then I'll just move forward. So then I tell them on this page, I say, well, I'm sure they got you. If they mentioned that they had experienced a funeral, I'll say, I'm sure they got you thinking about this. Well, I'll go over this with you. I'll tell you a little bit about us. We'll go over a few questions, and I'll put together some rates and see what you think. And then I move forward. I tell them a little bit about who I am and what we do. Unity Life Group is the name of our agency or company. We go by the Family Legacy Plan. Our main focus is working with companies who have a good track record of paying claims and paying claims quickly. That's just something I feel very strongly about. We want this to serve its purpose. What this means is that if you have a plan with us, when you die, your family will get the money fast. This is very important because most funeral homes want the money up front. So at least the money's going to be there for your family when they need it. And sometimes I say, rather than the funeral homes want the money up front, sometimes I just say, the funeral home, they're not waiting for the money. I mean, they want to be paid right then and there. So just really kind of depends on who I'm talking to and the different language I'm using. But a lot of times I just say, the funeral home, they're not waiting for the money. So we want to make sure that money is going to be there for your family. We want to make sure this serves its purpose, so it's there for them when they need it. And then
Adam,
I just
real quick.
Yeah. What's up, Chris?
Just want to make a real quick comment. I think one of the most powerful things in sales is to recognize if you sell on humor or if you sell on seriousness. It's the Morgan Freeman or Jim Carrey approach to sales. And what you're doing there is the classic credibility statement. And I think that is such a powerful approach to take for agents, even brand new agents. You may have just been in the business a week. This may be your third week in the business, but you've got more credibility than your client because you have a license, a carrier contract. They requested the information. So utilizing the credibility statement is super powerful. Maybe you have a life story you can share. Maybe you don't like credibility statements, but maybe your grandmother died without insurance, and then you had to pay for the funeral. And that's why you got an insurance. If you have a story that led you into this industry, or you have a lived experience that would inspire this person to action, share it. So utilize the power of credibility statements, be authentically you. And if something happened in your life that really puts insurance to the forefront of your existence, share it with your potential clients.
Yeah. And Chris, another thing too, I mean, how many people just walk into a home and all they're talking about is face amounts and rates? That's all somebody's talking about. Well, then the next person that walks in, yeah, maybe that's why business is so easy to replace. But very seldom does my business get replaced. I'm making this more like real. I'm making this authentic. I'm making this more than just another policy. And I think it's just because of the way I present, and I really try to make it hit home with the client. And by the time I'm done, I mean, half the time they're giving me a big hug when I leave because I made it authentic. I made it real. And they understand that this is going to be the one that's going to be there to help their family when they need it.
Yeah. When it comes to my presentation on the final expense side, I'm looking to see if there's something that they have that I can improve. If there's something they don't have, get them to the point where they can purchase, because some reasons held them up before. And when it comes to the Medicare approach, I just straight up tell them, I'm here to help you save money. I'm here to help you to get more money, improve your benefits. I'm not here to take anything from you. I'm trying to make your life better. And that's really honestly the same approach on either product presentation. When people think you're trying to extract premium from them and you're trying to show them rates and it just sounds like a sales pitch, people don't want to be sold, but everybody wants to buy. That's another key part in sales, that when we understand that, we can write more business.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So So then, again, then this portion of the presentation. And again, if you want a copy of the presentation, hop on adambersan.com. You can, or even unitylifegroup.com. You can fill in an inquiry and just send me over a little note. I'd be happy to send you a copy of it. And I'm working on my website where you'll just be able to get in there and download it. It's just not done yet. But anyways, this portion of the presentation, again, it's just kind of giving me a little bit of credibility. I just like to talk a little bit about, we've been in business for 21 years now, since 2003. And we've partnered with some of the most financially sound companies in the industry who are in the business to pay claims. I might even mention where some companies are going under. We work with companies that are buying out other companies right now. So we never have to worry about the companies going away. And then we're also able to help about 99% of the people we sit down with. So even those that have had trouble getting coverage in the past, there's a very good chance that we are still able to help them. And this is important because it's something everyone needs. Wouldn't you agree? So I'm just trying to get them to say yes. I'm trying to get them to just start agreeing with me. And yeah, they're going to. What are they going to tell me? No, people don't need this.
I don't agree.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've ever had anybody say, "Well, not really." No, I'm just kind of setting it up for yeah, of course. Yeah, everybody needs this. So then we talk about the Social Security death benefit. And I'm sure you know how it works with Social Security. They pay the $255 sometimes if there's a surviving spouse or a dependent child who's in school. And then if neither is the case, no one's getting anything. And that $255 really isn't going to do a whole lot anyways. I mean, the average funeral right now is ranging between about $4,000 and $20,000, with most falling around $12,000. Does that sound accurate to you? So same thing. Now, the reason I ask this question, does that sound accurate to you, is because, remember, I don't like to build a lot of rapport. So a lot of times when I ask that first question at the beginning, by sending this card back, had you experienced a funeral lately? They might not open up to me yet. They might not say yes. They might not want to provide much detail. But then what I found is that by going through things, kind of telling a little bit more about who I am and what we do, their guard starts to come down a little bit. And then when I ask that question, does, funerals range between $4,000 and $20,000, with most falling right now around $12,000. Does that sound accurate to you? A lot of times that person that told me that they hadn't experienced a funeral at the beginning come back there and tell me, yeah, we ended up having to bury our Uncle Joe about 6 months ago. I think it was like around 11,000. So what does that do? That tells me how much coverage they feel like they're probably going to need. And I like to sell based on the need. I don't want to sell on the want. I want to sell on the need. And if they know that someone they know just paid a certain amount for insurance, or for their funeral, well, then that's what they feel like they're going to need. If anything, I might mention that you got to focus not only on today, but years down the road too, because when I first got in the business, I mean, you could be buried for $6,000 and now it's 2 to 3 times that much. So I might bring that up, but at least they know for right now, if they were to die tomorrow, at least if they have 11,000 that they needed for Uncle Joe, well, then they would at least have enough to cover their funeral right now. I can always go back and write them more down the road. So that's why I asked that question. And that's what that slide says. And this is actually the whole script. Same thing. I can send you a copy of the script as well as the presentation that you can run through. And then the next page of the presentation, this is a breakdown on why funerals cost what they do. I don't need to bore you with all this. You know how it works, but the two main expenses are the casket and the burial vault, which is like the cement that goes in the ground before the casket. I mean, right now, the average cost for a casket's around $2,500, and then that vault's another $1,500. Some people decide that, they'd prefer to be cremated. That's when those expenses would be eliminated. I mean, have you thought about whether you want to be buried or cremated? And same thing. The reason I'm asking that question, I'm focusing on the need. If they tell me they want to be cremated, well, then as you can see on the script here, I am going to mention the different types of methods of cremation services. A direct cremation, no services involved, is going to run usually between about maybe $1,500 and $3,000. A cremation with a memorial service is going to run between about maybe 4,000 and 6,000. And then a cremation with a visitation where they still rent a casket. They still have to prepare the body. They have to embalm the body. After the funeral services, then that person is cremated. Well, I've seen services like that cost at least 6,000, upwards of close to 10,000. So again, I like to focus on the need. So then I might ask them if they mentioned the cremation, have you thought about, of those three methods, which way you're considering? And then that's kind of giving me an idea too of about how much coverage I feel like they're going to need to cover their funeral. And then we just move forward. If they say they want to be buried, well, we already talked about how much a burial is going to cost. So then I don't need to go through any of that. We just kind of move forward to the next page. So then the next page is I go through a pre-arrangement guide. The one that I have in the presentation is the one that is provided through American Amicable. You can order it through the supplies. So many different carriers out there have these. And I have several of them from different carriers that just go through their supplies and order some. And most of them aren't even going to charge you for them. But it's a great tool. And again, it makes this more than just about insurance. So that's the next part I go through. One thing that we have noticed is that there's so much more to when someone dies than just the money. And a lot of the time, the family just doesn't want to talk about this ahead of time. A lot of the time, the people bring this up to their family and they avoid it. The kids tell them they don't need it. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. And then when the time comes, they wish that their loved ones had something in place. A lot of times they're left clueless with not even really knowing exactly what their loved one who passed away would have wanted done. So that's why we're going to provide you with one of these pre-arrangement guides. It's almost like an instruction manual that you can fill out, you can leave to your loved ones so they know exactly how you want things done. And this is going to make things so much easier on your family when the time comes. And I'm sure that they'll really appreciate you taking the time to fill it out. It could also even prevent an argument. So right here, one thing that I did, and I actually updated this, I like to bring up objections before they're brought up, or not even objections, but even like smoke screens, as Chris would say, when people tell you like, well, I don't know, I got to think about this. I got to talk to my kids about it. I don't want to do anything without talking to my kids first. I'm already bringing up to them on this slide what's going to happen when they are going to talk to their kids about it. This is what usually happens. They go to their kids and their kids say, oh, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. You don't need that. So, and I'm getting them really, when I go through it this way, they're usually shaking their head in agreement with me. So then when they bring it up at the end, I can come back and say, well, remember what we talked about earlier? How when people talk to their kids about it, they just tell them, don't worry about it, forget about it. And then they're left with nothing. Well, you don't want that to happen. So that's what, like I said, I like to bring up the smoke screens or the objections in the presentation before they can even provide that to me.
Yeah. So it's so important to recognize that there is nothing to object to until there is an offer on the table. I think that's so important because we get this phrase objections so confused from so much garbage final expense training from people that don't actually sell it from the last 10 years. There is nothing to object to until you have shown them something to object to. Anything until that point is either a smoke screen or a sales diversion. And if you allow yourself to be diverted, you're simply handing them the conversational football and giving them control over the presentation. If you fall for a smoke screen, you're going to lose yourself in the presentation. There is nothing to object to until I've said, Ms. Johnson, here are the three options that most people pick. Which one works the best for you?
That's it. So, and another thing I like about these planning guides is that again, it separates what I'm doing from what everybody else is doing. Maybe agents might leave it behind. They might not even go through it with them. But I've had people tell me, wow, that's really nice. My other insurance doesn't do that. Like all it is a piece of paper. And maybe maybe the company that they have their policy with, maybe they could have actually received one of these things. Maybe they already have a policy with American Amicable for all I know. But like I said, so many of the different carriers have them. They're just useful tools. But like I said, it's separating what I'm doing from what other people are doing out there. And like I said, it really hits home with the client. And then I go through it with them. The first page here goes over your personal information, where you were born, where you worked, your family information, pretty much any information that's useful to help your family put an obituary together. And then your funeral request, if the church is involved, if you want like a favorite scripture read, or maybe like a favorite hymn sung. And then there's even a spot for people that may need to be notified. And I always bring up how a lot of times people are forgotten about. Maybe they find out 6 months later because nobody thought to call them at the time. Put people like that down. Let your family know ahead of time to be sure to call those people. At least then those people would have the opportunity to decide what they would like to do. And then the next page, the last part here, just kind of goes over like all your legal documents. If you have a will, where it's located, different insurance policies that you have. And then I always like to put in the comment section here, I always like to put my name and my phone number. So then when you're done filling this out, give it to your loved ones and just let them know that when that time comes, the first thing they need to do is call me, have them call Adam, even before the funeral home. And the reason I say that, Mary, is that when your family calls the funeral home, the first thing that funeral home is going to ask about is your policy. And they're going to tell your family, bring in the policy. We'll take a look at it. We'll see what we can do. And really, they just want to see how much money that they're working with. And unfortunately, a lot of times the funeral home will tend to try to use up as much of that money as they can. And, I'll even mention, I've seen situations where the funeral home uses up all the money, and then the family's got to still figure out how to pay the cemetery. So we're talking about separate expenses here. There's the funeral home, there's a cemetery, there might be like a repast, like a luncheon afterwards. I mean, that's all additional expense. We want to make sure that this serves all of those purposes and not just the funeral home. So yeah, when your family calls me, we'll get the claim process started. And then what we do is we can either overnight a check to them, or we can deposit that money directly into their bank account. So within about 24 to 48 hours, your family, they're going to have that money. And at least it's going to be there for them when they need it. And that's what's important. I mean, that's why you're doing this. This is for them. You're doing this for your family. And then I just kind of move on to the next. And like I said, right there, same thing. When I mentioned that about the funeral home, they're like in total agreement. Like they've been through it before. And it's like everything I'm saying is actually very accurate. They're like, yeah, that's the first thing they always ask about. And then they try to use it all up. So, and that's what we don't want to happen. So I go through that with them, let them know, we'll send that money straight to your family. When the funeral home asks about the policy, all your family's got to have to tell them is, what, we got that part handled. The money's on its way. As soon as we get paid, you guys will get paid. So, and then I just kind of go through, basically the highlights. And it's funny, this portion, it's kind of similar to like things you see on TV, but everything we talked about, it's all done with permanent whole life protection. What that means is that once it starts, you're covered forever. It's not one of those term policies that could expire before you do. This is one that, like I say, it's like your forever plan. It'll be there forever. The benefit never decreases. The premium will never go up. And then I'll mention, how some companies, they might start you really low just to get you in. And then every few years, they'll raise that rate where it could get to the point where you can't afford it anymore. We want to make sure that you can always handle this. So basically the way this starts is the way that it's going to finish. There's no surprises. The policy can never be canceled due to your age changing or due to your health changing. The only way you'll get canceled is if you don't keep up with it. And you are fully protected from the very first day that the policy goes into effect. We try our best to get people covered right away. There's no medical exam. We're not sending people out to take your blood, make you pee in a cup or anything like that. There's just a couple health questions, and that's about it. The next thing I ask them, so would you say you're in pretty good health? That's it. I mean, they might have 20 medications sitting on the table, and I still ask that question. Would you say you're in pretty good health? and they might they'll either say yes or no, I'm not. And then the next thing I ask them, usually when I ask them if they're in pretty good health, they're just going to start talking about their health. They'll tell me stuff and I'm just going to write it down. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask them about their medications. So much of what we do is based off of the medications that the people are taking. So, they might think that they're in very good health. They might just think that they're taking something for blood pressure when they're actually taking like a heart medication. That's going to be a big difference in your selection of products. So that's where it's important to be thorough and ask those questions. If you're not asking about the medications, that's a good reason why maybe when you're writing a piece of business, it's going to come back completely different than what you're anticipating. So ask about the medications, write them down. And then from there, usually what I do, depending on the situation, I mean, if they're taking multiple meds, that's usually when I'm going to hop into the toolkit and I'm going to plug in their information and then kind of figure out what the best available options would be. If it's a situation where they're maybe just taking like some blood pressure medications, well, then I'm going to lead with like my primary carrier that I know will cover them first day and hope for the best. And usually it tends to work out pretty well. Most of the time, my clients are pretty upfront with me, but sometimes you just never know. Sometimes there's stuff in the background that maybe they're just not telling you about, or maybe they forgot about some medication. I ran across COVID medications even that'll push them to modified sometimes with certain companies that they just forgot. It was just something that they took for 4 days or something. But so that's, again, why it's just important to be thorough. And even after I go through the medication, I might even ask, is there anything else that you can think of? Like maybe you're not taking it now that maybe you were taking like within the last couple of years. Is there anything else that maybe that you were taking that your doctor took you off of? Because any of that's going to pop up. So like I said, the more thorough you are, the better. And the higher the likelihood that that piece of business will get issued the way that you're assuming that it should, which makes your life a heck of a lot easier with, I mean, it sucks when you write an app and then it comes back one way and then you're either having to try to conserve it with that carrier or having to switch gears and then you got to fill out a whole nother application with another company. Then you're in the house for 2 hours. So do the job up front and it's going to prevent a lot of that. I'm sure you would agree, Chris.
Yeah, the longer you're in the home after that 45-minute mark, your credibility meter continues to decrease exponentially. And you don't even know it until you've been doing this for years and years and years. But people can only digest 45 minutes of information before their brain shuts off. That's why we're trying to keep these right at that 1 hour mark and give a few minutes to Q&A if necessary, because your brain's full. Ours is too. And then the longer you stay in the home, the less they trust you, the less you look like you know what you're doing. And the more, as soon as you leave, they're going to say to each other, Adam, that guy was an idiot, and I'm totally going to put a stop payment on this as soon as he leaves. And that happens if you don't know, if you don't look what you know what you're doing.
Yeah, if you're like shuffling around and just trying to figure things out, and even like the different logins for like the different carriers and stuff.
Oh, come on. You're like be a professional. Know how to log into the website.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a lot of that, if you're shuffling around and having trouble and stuff, and it looks like it's the first app you've ever written.
Mm-hmm. And now, if it is, look like you're working really hard. Like part of this presentation is literally a stage presentation. Man, Adam, I got to work. Whew, this is all these new medications came up you hadn't mentioned before. Okay, no big deal. Like, don't look like you're panicked and you can't figure out how to log into American Amicable's website. Take a deep breath. They're not going anywhere. You need to go somewhere pretty soon, but don't look like you don't know what you're doing.
And then from there, like I said, I kind of figure out the best options to go. And then the next thing I'm going to ask them, do you have any coverage now? Like I said, I'm focusing on the need. And like I said earlier, I like to focus on if I got to make this different than anything else they already have. That also helps me in the decision of the carrier that I'm going to use. As I mentioned, I wrote like that American Amicable Platinum product this week, last night, just because I knew that was something that would add a lot of value to somebody that really cares about kind of having all of their funeral arrangements put together ahead of time. So, I'm gonna figure out a way to make this make sense to them, regardless of if they already have any coverage or not. I'm gonna figure out a way to make this different. But like I said, that also helps me to figure out which carrier to use in some scenarios. So if they say they already have coverage now, great. So you're just looking to add to what you have if affordable. I'm shaking my head yes, and then they're going to shake their head yes too. If they say no, that they don't have any coverage now, I make them, as it says here in red, make them feel like they're the last person in the world who doesn't have a policy. Wow, no wonder you contacted us then. This is important. And that's exactly how I say it. Like, I'm not making this up. That's how I do it in the home. You make them feel like they're the last person in the world who doesn't have coverage. And why would they want to go another day without having anything, especially if they can get it today? So next, I'm going to talk about affordability. And at that point, I kind of know the rates that I put together. And I know like the most expensive one. And I kind of do like Chris, I know you kind of do the same thing, where you kind of like to focus like around $50 a month, 75 and like 100 a month. So that's kind of where I go. I might ask them about affordability. Affordability is important. You want this to be there for your family when they need it. And if you don't keep up with it, it's not going to be. So have you thought about affordability monthly? I might say, is $90 to $100 a month affordable, or is that outrageous? Oh, that's just way too high. All right. How about 80 to 90? How about 70 to 80? Sooner or later, they'll tell me, what's affordable. So then, if I got to start there, that's where I'll start. Okay. So $50 to $60 a month is affordable. Okay. So then that's where I'm going to put together some rates that are kind of within that price range. If that's what they told me that they can afford. And what I'm doing there, I am overcoming the objection before it comes up of everything sounds good, but I just don't think I can afford it. I'm figuring out what they can afford before I even put the rate together. So they can't come back and tell me, well, I just can't afford it. So then I'll put together the rates. Like I said, maybe one for 50. Maybe I'll still do the one for 75 and 100, because sometimes maybe they told me all they can handle is 50, but then when they see how much coverage that they can get for 75, all of a sudden it becomes more affordable. And they're willing to maybe figure out a way to make it happen. So yeah, I still like to kind of stick with like the 50, 75 and 100. And if they still want to go with the cheapest one, that's 50, great. If they want to do a little bit more, that's fine too. So in this scenario, let's just say, so then a $10,000 plan is going to run $50 a month. And I'm writing that down as I'm talking to them. And I'm just waiting for their reaction. If they don't say anything, then I'm going to put another rate together. If they say something like, well, that sounds good, whatever, to me, I just sold it. And the next thing I'm going to ask them is, who's your beneficiary going to be? Like, if they say any sort of buying response, I'm not going to even give them another quote. I'm not going to give them anything to have to think about. If they say that sounds good, all right, well, who's your beneficiary going to be? I move forward with filling out the application. If they don't say anything, if I say, 10,000 is going to be $50 a month, and they're just kind of sitting there, well, then 12,500, that's going to run $70 a month, whatever. Probably not that much, but it's going to run $70 a month. If they still don't say anything, 15,000 is going to run $100 a month, depending on their age. And then from there, if they still haven't said anything, then the next thing I say is, I'll let you tell me what's affordable. And I'll put the quotes in front of them. And as I have on my script here, just sit there and shut up. Don't say anything. First one to talk loses. And that's it. You could talk yourself right out of a sale too. So sit there, let them figure out what's affordable. They're going to come up with their decision and make them be the next one to talk. Okay. And that's it. From there, who's your beneficiary going to be?
Yeah. Active listening means that you as the salesperson need to shut up. Like, you can't, listening is not waiting for your turn to talk. It's actually hearing what they're saying, observing what it means, digesting it, going further into the conversation. It's that conversational football that's happening again. And like Adam said, as soon as they've picked an option, you have to immediately reassign it to that beneficiary They've picked out who it's for or what they're getting. Now they need to remember in this moment who it's for again. So important. And if you need a transitional statement to get your iPad out, get you settled, and get you moving, Adam, I like the phrase, go ahead and grab your ID for me just so I can tell them that I saw it while I get everything set up. And that gives me a moment of composure to transition into the application once I know they've picked their option.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, usually like I'll ask them who their beneficiary is going to be. I'm just writing it down on my iPad. I might ask them, I might even just ask them a few questions before I even get to the app. I might be logging in while I'm filling out stuff, just writing it down, what's your middle initial, just little things like that. And then when I get on the e-app or whatever, I kind of just start filling everything in. But yeah, I've had people talk themselves right out of sales. I remember training a guy once and he was doing the presentation and he said, kind of like what I said, I'll let you tell me what's affordable. And they're like, I think the 12,000 would be affordable. And then he says something like, all right, so are you sure you can handle that? And like, it opened it back up to make them thinking like, oh my, I don't know if I can handle it or not. And I think I ended up having to like jump in and like save it for him. But yeah, you could talk yourself right out of a sale. Like they make their decision. It's time to move forward. And the way I do that, who's your beneficiary going to be? And just start filling out the app. So then from there,
it's got to be assumptive.
Like I said, from there, yeah, we just kind of go through the e-app, the next thing, the bank info. And I keep it very simple. All I say is this is on a bank draft. What's a good date? That's another one where I've seen agents over explain. People know how it works. Most people's bills are set up that way these days. The only time I say something here is if I say this is on a bank draft, what's a good date? And they say, I think the 15th would be good. Then I'm usually going to ask them, okay, well, do you get paid on the second Wednesday of the month? Because that's probably what they're thinking. Or if they say the 5th of the month, I might ask them, do you get paid on the 1st or do you get paid on the 3rd? I want to set this to coincide with their social security dates. So that's really the main thing. That really will help with your persistency as well. So don't over explain it. But if they give you a date outside of just like a social security day, well, then bring that up and be sure to set it up to coincide with their social security deposit days. And then from there, just ask for referrals. You may, this is how I do it. You may wonder how I get paid. I kind of look at it as I just help them with something and they're happy that I was able to help them. And sometimes if they feel like I'm actually going to get something out of it, they're more willing to help me. So I say, you might wonder how I get paid. Well, I get paid two ways. One, most importantly, with you taking out this policy, yes, I do earn a commission based on you keeping this policy in force. So please be serious about your decision today. And then second, I get paid by you giving me names of 5 people who you think might be interested in what we talked about today. I'm not talking about 5 people that will buy insurance, just 5 people you think may be interested in what we talked about. And that's it. So they think I'm going to get paid just by them giving me names. But that's how I do it. I know there's so many different ways. I know there's people probably even way better than I am at getting referrals. But the bottom line, you're not going to get a referral unless you ask. That's the only price for a referral is that you have to ask for it. So, and so many times we are in the home, it's like, we're all excited. We just made a sale that we're jumping up out of our chair and we're running out of the house. And then we get back to the car and it's like, oh shoot, I probably should have asked them for some referrals. So be sure to ask people that we're helping. They know many other people that are in the same scenario that need our help. And I've walked into so much garbage in people's homes when they hand me their policies, stuff that probably should have never been written. Us as the agents that are out there trying to do stuff the right way, we need to be able to help more people to make sure that more people are set up properly. So you're doing a good thing really for your client and their community by asking for referrals to making sure that you can set up people properly. So, and then only other thing, don't forget to bring up the modified death benefit if it is a modified. There's different ways to do it. I don't bring it up until after the fact. I wrote the app, everything's done, the whole thing's signed, it's all submitted. That's when I bring it up. It's a lot harder for them to come back and say I changed my mind after the whole thing's done. I've even walked into homes where people, I don't want nothing if it's got one of those 2-year waiting periods on it. And then they're a modified death benefit, and I write it up and then I explain it at the end, and they're just like, oh, okay. So it's like, do it after the fact and you're going to come out much better. And I make a big deal out of their health. Because of your heart issue that, like I told you, most companies aren't even going to take you. We just want to make sure that you live a couple years. What that means is that if something happens to you within the first couple of years, due to natural causes, your family, they're going to get back every penny that you gave us plus 10% interest. That's better than it was just put into some sort of risky stock or a bank account that's not earning anything. So the good news is that you don't lose a dime by funding this policy, and you're going to live more than a couple of years anyways. And a lot of times they even talk about the fact that time goes by so fast anyways. Like I'll mention, like right now, heck, it's already September. I feel like we were just celebrating New Year's. So, I mean, time goes by so fast anyways, but you want to get that clock started right now anyways, because the longer you put it off, you're just delaying that clock from getting started. So, but like I said, usually when I present it this way, I don't think I've ever had somebody come back and change their mind and tell me, no, I don't want it. I bring it up. I just bring it up after I wrote it. I still told them about it. I think legally, you need to be telling the client about it. So I do, just after the fact. And from there, it seems to work out pretty well.
Only difference I make is if I'm in a situation where I'm describing a modified or graded or a guaranteed issue plan, I use the word months. Months seems more consumer friendly and digestible. 24 months, 36 months. I mean, there's 6, 7, 8-year car loans at this point, which is obscene, but they describe them as months, so it really doesn't seem all that long. I just prefer months as it sounds nicer to them.
Yeah, and I think I need to update on the script, because that's something too that I feel like I probably say that more often than years too, because they hear that too often. And one thing, I never use the term waiting period.
They're not waiting.
I mean,
they're covered for accidental.
Yeah, I've heard agents say that too. We're able to get you covered, but there's going to be a 2-year waiting period. Like that's a negative way of putting it. It's like a put off. And that's probably why they're walking out without a sale. So it's so much of this is just how you present it. So, and if you're not part of the group, reach out to me. You can go to unitylifegroup.com/careers. We got lots of good opportunities here when it comes to in-home sales, telesales. We have several different options when it comes to different lead programs that are available. I mean, heck, you're on the training right now. So much different trainings and ongoing support. We got the daily phone call that Chris does such a good job with. I help out once in a while on it, like this morning. So many different opportunities to build a team, working with multiple carriers, several options available when it comes to that. And even if you're looking to build a team, I mean, we have several high-level contracts available to give you room even to put some agents under you. So lots of good stuff. Feel free to check out my website, adambrisson.com. I'm still in the process of kind of updating the training, but you can also check out the YouTube, and also go to, you can go to my channel, where you can just Google my name or search in YouTube, Adam Brisson. You can also go to the Insurance Life and Everything in Between YouTube channel that we are also streaming live on right now. And don't forget the podcast. We have the podcast in video and also audio formats. Check it out on Apple, Spotify, and all these other ones that I forget the names of. So thanks again for checking us out today and hopping on the training. Anything you want to add, Chris, before we sign off this morning?
No, just appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you subscribe to whatever method you're watching us on. Make sure if you're off of StreamYard or you're watching this on Facebook, you're seeing this on YouTube, I need a favor. I need you to drop a comment below so that this is shown to more people. We have a lot of great views. We have a lot of great subscribers, but we need more comments. So if you're watching this off of StreamYard at any point between now and the end of civilization, drop us a comment and go out there and make some money today. Don't let the world get ahead of you. Get in front of people. Help them with what they know that they need. And if you don't know what to do, reach out and we'll be there to help you.
Sounds good. I'm going to go try to reach my train. I got 20 minutes.
You got it.
See you guys.